Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to be deciphering the 13 core structures that actually dictate global laws, rights, and economies. It's like a giant puzzle, and we are going to systematically break down how nations operate at their very foundation.
So let me ask you, who really holds the supreme power in your country? Now, understanding these structural definitions isn't just some dry academic exercise. It is absolutely crucial. It's the key to understanding your own civil liberties and exactly how resources are managed all around you. Let's dive in and find out where that power actually originates.
To build this framework, we'll travel across a spectrum of power. 1. The power of the few. 2. Rule by the people. 3. Economics and state control. 4. Structuring and limiting power. And 5. The absence of government.
All right, Section 1, the power of the few.
Kicking things off is one of the absolute oldest forms of government out there, the monarchy. This is where rule is inherited through family, right? Usually passing down to the oldest child. But keep in mind, monarchies come in very different flavors. You've got symbolic monarchies, like the United Kingdom, where the monarch is basically a figurehead holding no real political or economic power. And then you have absolute monarchies, where the king or queen makes literally all the vital decisions for the country.
But here's the catch. Concentrating all that power at the very top comes with some severe structural vulnerabilities. In a monarchy, the obvious risk is just getting an unsuitable heir who takes power simply by birthright, which totally bypasses democratic governance. Then you have an autocracy. Think of the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. Here, one person or party holds absolute unchecked power, which seriously invites dictatorial abuse. And then there's an oligarchy, which inherently creates massive economic and social inequalities between classes.
Which brings us to a much deeper look at oligarchies. It literally translates to rule of the few. Now, unlike monarchies, this power isn't formally passed down by law. Instead, it's seized, usually through financial or military dominance. Interestingly enough, while the USA is formally a federal government, it's frequently perceived as an oligarchy just because of the massive influence large corporations hold over political decisions. Moving right along, Section 2, Rule by the People.
Okay, let's clear up a major point of confusion. Republic versus democracy. On the left side here, we have a republic. This is rooted in Plato's teachings, and it means the state literally belongs to the people, who then elect representatives to manage it for them. Over on the right, we have pure democracy, tracing all the way back to ancient Athens. Here, the people don't technically own the state, but they are the sovereign leaders who directly determine laws via majority vote. The big drawback here, pure democracy can become highly unstable because majority opinion is constantly shifting.
But, out in the real world, countries rarely stick to just one textbook definition. Take the Philippines, for example. It operates as both a democracy and a republic at the exact same time. But what about Canada and Norway? They are highly democratic for sure, yet technically they're not republics because, constitutionally, they are actually monarchies. It's wild. Governments constantly layer these foundational concepts together to make things work.
Section 3, Economics and State Control.
Let's look at how resources are handled and contrast socialism with communism. Under socialism, which you see on the left, workers can actually own property, but a central government distributes goods to equalize opportunities and remove social hierarchies. Now, a noted drawback here is that this can severely kill productivity incentives. Communism, over on the right, takes this whole idea much further. Based on Karl Marx's teachings, it totally eliminates private ownership. The state assumes absolute control to equally share all resources.
And if we look at the entire modern world today, guess how many countries actively practice communism? Exactly 5. We're talking about China, Cuba, Laos, North Korea, and Vietnam. Historically speaking, this system frequently fails because it's deeply vulnerable to abuse and often places severe restrictions on fundamental human rights.
And that extreme restriction of rights? Well, that brings us to the far end of the spectrum, totalitarianism. Originally coined by Benito Mussolini, this isn't just about political or economic control. No, this system attempts to control the very beliefs and the free will of its citizens. The core idea is that no one should ever go against the state. The primary modern example of this extreme structure is North Korea, a totalitarian republic that's been ruled by the Kim family for 3 generations now.
All right, Section 4, Structuring and Limiting Power.
To really wrap your head around a federal system of government, think of it just like a sports team. The central government, that's the head coach leading the nation, but it delegates roles to regional states. They're the assistant coaches. This gives them the independence to run their own internal affairs. In massive countries like the US, it's just infinitely more efficient to decentralize power, rather than trying to micromanage every little thing from the top down.
Now, at the executive level, power usually splits into one of two camps. In the presidential system, on the left, power is strictly separated. You have a president who executes laws, completely independent of the legislature that actually makes them. In a parliamentary system, on the right, that power is combined. The dominant party with the most representation in the legislature actually forms the executive branch, which is led by a prime minister.
But hey, these complex modern systems, they come with their own distinct set of structural headaches. Federal systems risk severe economic inequality between resource-rich and resource-poor regions. Presidential systems run the risk of abuse if a single executive grabs too much concentrated authority. Parliamentary systems often face constant instability and gridlock from opposing parties. And constitutional governments, well, they suffer from extreme rigidity. I mean, if a new desperately needed law contradicts the Constitution, adapting is incredibly difficult.
When you put the whole shebang together, you can really see how major global players layer these structures to form their modern governments. Take the UK. It's fundamentally constitutional, operates a parliamentary executive, but still retains a symbolic monarchy. The United States is constitutional, presidential, and federal, while also grappling with that perceived oligarchy we talked about earlier. And Japan, it mirrors the UK, with a constitutional foundation, parliamentary system, and symbolic monarchy. It's just fascinating how modular these concepts truly are in practice.
Finally, Section 5, the absence of government.
We've reached the very end of the spectrum, anarchism. Often labeled a non-government, there's a huge popular misconception that its primary goal is just to, burn everything down. But structurally speaking, the actual goal is absolute self-governance. The idea is that people voluntarily help one another to improve the community, completely free from any top-down authority. Now, while no true anarchist state exists today, Somalia prior to 2006, when it totally lacked a national government, is often cited as a prime modern example of this stateless condition.
But right away, we hit a massive roadblock: the anarchism paradox. This is the ultimate structural flaw of having no structure. Because human nature often defaults to self-interest, relying purely on voluntary community care severely risks devolving into sheer chaos. Without a central authority there to mediate or enforce laws, that self-interest can quickly tear a community apart.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. If every single system out there has its own structural flaws, which form of government actually offers the best balance? We've seen how absolute power corrupts, how democracy can foster instability, how complex systems breed gridlock, and how total freedom can just invite chaos. So the next time you're watching the global news, use these 13 definitions. Identify the systems nations are layering together and ask yourself, how are their underlying structures driving their actions? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.